Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit of up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here.
This is the Fun Belt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts the Dusty Thibodeaux of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howl Racer, and Shane Mettlen of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belts.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating.
Welcome back, Fun Belt Podcast. And guys, the green room is stuffed. It's bulging with testosterone. I can't believe they come back. They come back every year, no matter how poorly the show from last year goes. They say, we want some more. Group of five guys are with us today. Matt and Tyler, welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Gentlemen, I really do always enjoy coming on here every year. Is this 3 or is this year 4? It's not year 4 already.
No, it's got to be 3, right, Thibs?
I don't know where we're at. Just like I don't know why we have 2 Shanes, but
that was
interesting. 2 Shanes for a moment.
You guys see 2? Sorry about that.
That's how big the show is that Shane starts replicating.
We're splitting chromosomes.
We're at year 4 because this is our.
We're at year 4, but have we done 3 years with the group of 5 guys?
We've done 4. We had them on year 1.
Okay. All right. Wow.
The mega show, as we always call it.
That must have been because we didn't start doing a podcast until I don't know. I guess you're right because my kid turned 4 this weekend, and we were doing it when we were about to have them.
That's a good barometer of time.
That's how I'm gonna. Poor kid, he's gonna go his whole life. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna be at the doctor, and they're gonna be like, how old is he? Let me see. Group of 5 guys. Let's see. Louisiana won the Sun Belt 20. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've been at the pharmacy and I'm picking up prescriptions for everybody. Right, my wife, my kids. They'll say, "Okay, when was your son born?" I'm like, "Oh shit." And I have to think about it, and you could just feel the waves of judgment coming across from the pharmacy. Just how can you be a dad and not know when your son was born? But the older they get, the harder it becomes. Your kid's 4. Yeah, you got it easy, Matt.
Yeah.
My kids are 18 and 21.
I do remember being like 9, 10, and my dad would be like, "How old are you?" And then I'd be like,
we don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never be that dad. That's the first word you say is always, "How old are you?" And what am I supposed to do when I'm getting you ready for school this morning? And how do I drop you off? And I'm glad McDonald's serves breakfast and all the normal parenting tips.
What's your teacher's names? We don't know. But guys, no, listen, we gotta get down to business. We can talk about kids all day long. But what we really need to do is talk about the state of the G5, what we can expect this year. Guys, the guys from the group of 5 guys, we're kind of lazy. We just focus on the Sun Belt. You guys are across the universe checking in on all of it. Guys, how does it look out there? How does the G5 landscape look? Especially with it being so damn weird right now. No longer a Pac-12 out there, kind of a Pac-2. And then, or maybe, are they part of the Mountain West? Maybe you can help us out with that.
Go for it, Tip. They're kind of playing a Mountain West schedule,
yes,
but they're still out there trying to. I think they're trying to convince the Mountain West teams to go back and reignite the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 or Pac whatever they want to call it. But you mentioned it before the show, like the Chief. It's in such a good spot if you're not one of these elite commissioners like Greg Sankey that thinks it's not. It's like it's doing so well. The football is great, but everything else is we're sort of getting put on we're getting the shaft for sure.
Well, you know what? In some ways, it seems like a lot of smaller conferences, Group of Five conferences in particular, are sort of, they're not giving up on football. Nobody should give up on football, of course. That's just a dumbassery. But there's sort of now more of a focus. Hey, there are other places that our conferences can shine. It can shine in baseball. It can shine in basketball, where you can still be part of a 68 team tournament. There's just other places where you can boot up. You see it in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt seems to be really revving up in basketball. Have you seen that in other conferences too, saying, hey, listen, we need to not just focus on football, where it seems like two conferences are taking over. We need to find other places to shine.
Yeah. I mean, well, you look at FAU, what they did in their little run in the Final Four in basketball. And then, but unfortunately, I think the same thing's coming down the pipe for any of the revenue, for men's basketball, probably women's basketball, and a little bit baseball. I mean, you saw the SEC and the ACC complaining. They don't want Coastal Carolina winning baseball national championships. They don't want East Carolina winning baseball national championships. And so, to me, unfortunately, if you're going to do that as a conference, you're going to be in the same boat in those other sports too, eventually.
And it kind of seems like, at least with the non-football sports, it's with that FAU basketball run that Sprouse mentioned. That's a team that had been playing together for several years, and it finally hit one season. And then the next year, I'm pretty sure they had the same starting lineup, coming back, and the expectations were high. And I mean, that tournament is one of, if not the toughest, college sports tournament in all of college sports. And they didn't make it back to the Final Four. And then once that team goes away, it's tough to repeat. And then we're seeing the situation both in non-football sports and football for the Group of Five. You have these super talented athletes on these teams that think that the grass is greener on the other side, on the P4 side, and then they transfer to a P4 school, and then these Group of Five teams are sometimes scrambling to get transfers in to fill their roster and fill holes that they need, and you just never know. It's just kind of the landscape now of college football. You just don't know exactly what the team's going to look like. You can look at these transfers coming in and look at these athletes. You see a lot of P4 guys that might not necessarily be getting a lot of playing time, and they come to a G5 school. Yeah, he's got the talent. He had the stars coming out of high school, but you just don't know exactly how that's going to translate on the football field, with the team. So it's challenging right now. And you're trying to, especially preseason, you're trying to look and see, analyze and see how these teams are going to, do this upcoming year. It's tough until you actually see them get on the field and play.
And it's all about the mighty dollar as well, because the P4 having to pay the 60-80% of this settlement for NIL, whereas we're stuck holding the bag without really the benefit even of, we didn't get that revenue of selling the jerseys for our players. Yes, there was no nameplate on it, so it just so happened to be a number 34 Auburn jersey, whatever. But we're on the hook as well. Every Sunbelt school paying $350,000 for the next 10 years to kind of make up for what the big boys were doing there on name, image, and likeness. So I think that at least for the next 10 years, we're going to see the status quo of where we're at. But somehow, some way, the P4 is going to want to recoup the money that they've had to pay out on that. And that's where we're really going to see that divide is coming up in these next few years.
That's it right there. And whatever lawyer or legal advisor that convinced all of these Group of Five commissioners that they were in this fight too is a winner, because you're right. You're right. You're paying. It's like they must have threatened them, like, you're not going to be considered D1 if you don't pay this whatever percentage. And then what are you going to do? Yeah, you bought you a few years to inevitably, seems like, get broken off the back of this thing.
But I mean, part of that, Jeremy and myself were at Sunbelt Conference Media Days talking with Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill.
We were there.
We were there. Shane was not.
No, Shane wasn't there.
Neither Shane, either the one on screen or the other one that was here earlier. Oh, we offended.
Now we got no Shane.
Golly. Jeremy, never talk about. It's obviously a sore subject for him.
I know, it makes him cross.
But we were talking with Commissioner Keith Gill. He is very adamant that we are not going to have a G5 playoff. We're not going to have a G5 poll. We are one for all. We're all going to be a part of it. And I applaud the sentiment that he is keeping everybody together and positioning the Sun Belt to be a part of whatever this new NCAA looks like. But at the same time, let's be real. Just like you said, they don't want Coastal Carolina winning. They don't want East Carolina. They don't want a Sun Belt team in the NCAA tournament at all, even the first round, because just in case we have another one shining moment with Georgia State hitting the game-winning shot, or even the days of Western Kentucky where they went on their Sweet 16 run. They don't want that. So they're going to keep doing everything they can. We might as well just say, you know what? Fine. We'll do our own damn thing. And then when they're beating up on each other, which they don't want to have the one or two losses because Alabama had to play Oregon, they had to play Florida State. Like, that's just the way their schedule is. They want those softer games. They want to be able to play the Samfords. They want to be able to play the UABs. I can't name any Sunbelt teams because then they'll come after us in the ads on Twitter. But that's what they want, because that gives them that cushion. That makes them feel better. That's the difference of them being a 9-win team or a 10-win team and getting those millions of dollars of additional revenue getting into the CFP. So we need them just as much as they need us, but I don't think they realize that yet.
Yeah, I agree. And then also there's those, to me, if there was ever going to be a separate playoff, I mean, I think you could take, we always say it's like 8 to 10 teams. You could probably make the argument for about 20 of the true Power 5 teams. I mean, listen, like, Josh Pate got on the pedestal talking about, I remember he kept comparing, he said he's going to compare Alabama and South Alabama, and then he's going to compare Georgia and Georgia State, and he's saying this is not the same sport that they're playing. And you're like, you know what, it's not, but you know what, neither is Georgia and Georgia Tech. They're not playing the same sport. Alabama, and at this point Auburn ain't playing the same sport, to be fair. And so let those 15 to 20, they can go do their own thing, because they are playing a different level of football. But
I think that's a good point, Matt. I think a lot of these members of the P4 are kind of thinking they're safe, but they should look at what happened to the Pac-12 and what's going to end up happening to the ACC, and say we could be knocked down like Washington State and Oregon State in the blink of an eye. I mean, for instance, Arkansas, which doesn't win anything in football. I mean, they're just ho-ho-hoing. I'm like, you guys are ho-ho-hoing right out of the conversation, guys. To me, it's whatever Fox and ESPN wants to do. They'll make their own damn leagues, and we might have to live with that. Now, Thibs and I do disagree on certain aspects of that. I feel like, that I don't know if having a buffer is really what they care about or not. During the COVID year, when the SEC just played themselves, they saw record amount of viewership. They saw record amount of profits that year. they don't care really about competing. They only care about the bag. Vanderbilt's happy to get that bag every year. So I don't know if that's like a big deal or not. I do agree though with our commissioner, our Sun Belt commissioner Keith Gill. Fuck these guys. We're part of this. Our job is to get into the college football playoffs until forced out otherwise. Force us out. You're gonna have to push us out. To volunteer and to surrender that ground willingly, that doesn't make sense to me. Like the ACA. Shane?
You guys are right, and it's not just on the field either. Like Georgia Tech is not competitive with Georgia, and it really is just a 10 to 15 teams that are driving this thing, not just on the field, but also TV, which is what caused all these changes. But if you look at the ratings, like the only there's like maybe 10 schools that are guaranteed to get ratings no matter where you put them on the dial, what time slot you put them on, what channel you put them on. Other than that, like the 3:00 ESPNU time slot is getting the same ratings whether you put Georgia Southern, Troy there, or whether you put Missouri, Tennessee there. Like it's getting the same. I mean, Alabama, Penn State, Colorado at the moment, USC. Like there's only a handful of teams that really make a difference TV rating wise. And I think that's what, if we're going to talk about the lower tier P4 schools need to worry about, like that's where like they're going to get separated.
And you talked about COVID. Everyone had high viewership. Why? We were all desperate. There was nothing better to do. We had already seen the entire Netflix catalog.
True. Yeah.
And one other point there, Matt, you talked about how, Alabama, South Alabama, they're not playing the same game. ESPN already showcased in true full fashion what we're really looking at in college athletics. You remember when IMG played Bishop Sycamore?
Yeah. Yeah.
The best team money could buy.
Yeah. Well, IMG, that's a whole nother. How IMG is allowed to do what they do is wild to me. But
instead of getting in the podcast room, we need to get into that game because we don't need to be bitching about our place in the universe.
We do.
Although that is one of my favorite things to do. You guys traveling the United States, checking the pulse of the group of five, finding out who do you like this year? Who's going to be that team that we're going to be bitching isn't getting enough love from the college football playoff committee?
It's going to be tough. So we talked a little bit about this last night on our show, and the all of the favorites this year play one of the real Power 5 schools this year, right? So Memphis, everybody's high on Memphis, but Memphis goes to Florida State.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's high on Boise State. Boise State goes to Oregon.
Yeah.
You want to be high on App State? App State goes to Clemson.
Oh.
So there's a couple. There's, Tulane is nationally not expected to do quite as well. I think we all disagree and think that they are going to be very good.
We saw what John Summerall did,
and maybe
Troy.
scary good.
Yeah. John Summerall knows what he's doing.
But but Tulane's got, I don't want to say an easier, but theirs I think are more winnable. They've got Oklahoma and they've got Kansas State in their Power 5 non-conference, which are both going to be ranked when they play them, but they're not. Those teams are not Oregon or Florida State or Clemson. Maybe Oklahoma, maybe, but then there's that team in Lynchburg, Virginia again. That they Conference USA is what it is. Yeah. If they go to Boone, they got to go to Boone and play App State. So to me, this season you're going to find out a lot. So everybody was all up in arms about Liberty last year because they got beat so badly by Oregon. But we've said this all the time. Listen, Oregon was 2 field goals away from playing for a national championship. That was not the, number 16 Big Ten runner-up that normally plays in, your New Year's Six versus the group of 5. That was, again, they win one of those games against Washington and they're in. And I think they were as good as anybody last year. But anyway, so Boise State's got to go to Eugene and play them. So if Boise State doesn't perform any better than Liberty did, then why would we not just let if Liberty goes undefeated again, why would you not put Liberty in there again? There's no proof that they're not the best team, and until they lose to somebody. But then, I don't know. I think in the Sun Belt, unfortunately, it's so good top to bottom. It's just so good all the way up and down that I think it's going to cannibalize itself, and you're not going to have anybody that jumps out all season long, and you're going to be sitting there Thanksgiving weekend with a couple of teams with 3 or 4 losses still competing to win the Sun Belt, and that's not going to get in the playoff.
Yeah, I think it might be the same as last year. We do make fun. Well, we don't make fun. Thibs, Shane, we don't really make fun of Liberty. We do grouse a little bit about. We do. Sometimes. We have been known to grouse about their schedule a little bit.
And that Jamie Chadwell pissed Till, and I hope he's not pissing red now.
Well, yeah, then he'd have to go see a doctor. Well, he'd have to see a doctor in either case. But yeah, I mean, if we want people to shut up about Liberty, Appalachian State's going to have to beat Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
head to head.
Yeah, I mean that's just the ball of wax there.
Don't die, Jeremy. Don't get choked up talking about Liberty.
Oh my God!
You may need to go see a doctor.
I think I might.
What color's the urine at the moment?
Oh, it's a mixture. It's the color of scotch.
I do personally think so. I don't think Liberty's going to go undefeated this year. I think at least one loss this year, and it's going to be against App State at Boone. I think that's just an extremely tough game on the road. We know the atmosphere at Boone. I think it's going to be their one loss. Now, and they might have a loss against maybe a Western Kentucky or Jacksonville State, but I could see a scenario where Liberty has the one loss against App State. They go undefeated in the conference, and then they're conference champions, and you have maybe a 2-loss Memphis or Boise State or Tulane team that is that has a loss against an Oregon or against an Oklahoma, and then they're going to be left out of the college football playoff because I think at least for this year, they're not going to let 2 group of 5 teams into the playoff. I think it's going to be strictly one group of 5 team, and it's going to be that 12 seed. And I could see a situation where they're going to let a Liberty team that goes undefeated in Conference USA with one loss against App State on the road, and they're going to put them in against a 2-loss Memphis or Boise State or Tulane team.
Yeah, I really want to see what they end up doing if it's a situation like you described where it's a 1-loss Liberty or a 2-loss App State, but App State beat Liberty, and the other one of the other losses is to Clemson. Like, how do they end up looking at that? And like last year, I'm not even convinced that the selection committee paid that much attention to the G5 teams last year and those like intricacies, like who was beating who and everything. I think they just kind of like towards the end felt like they had to throw somebody in and didn't put a ton of thought into it, if we're being honest.
I think they do that, and that's why I think especially in this first year, I think it almost is going to have to be a program with some brand recognition. I think if Texas State, turn in the Sun Belt, for instance, if they turn out to be what a lot of people think they are, and they do, let's say that's a 1 or a 2-loss Sun Belt champion, it's Texas State. I think they'll 100% get overlooked for a 1 or 2-loss Tulane, Memphis, or Boise State. Now, if it's a 1-loss Appalachian State, who's got a little bit of national brand recognition, who could probably get some ratings, who they'll go, the sports media does that. Just because App State beat A&M, the other year and beat Michigan 20 years ago, they'll that's in their mind that, oh, this is App State. They'll beat somebody, they can beat somebody, but it's completely different rosters. And the same thing about Boise State, the same thing about Tulane or a Memphis who have done it before. But if this is a new to the New Year's 6 world, they're not going they're not going to give it to them. You got to almost go undefeated or have 11 wins 2 years in a row in the group of 5 to have a shot.
You don't think the Jordan McLeod effect for Texas State propels them?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I guess who's Texas State got in the non-conference? UTSA, but
Arizona State.
See, I don't think that does it. I think even if they beat in Arizona State, I don't think that. I think if Texas State starts out, when do they play Arizona State? Week 3 or
week 3?
3, I think, and it's a Thursday night game.
So even if they were 3-0, I don't think they would even. I don't know. I don't think they would sniff the top 25.
Oh, and they have the neutral site game against Sam Houston at NRG.
Yeah, see, I don't think that moves the needle for the committee because they're not going to pay attention. They won't start paying attention to Texas State until they're 8-0. Then they'll be like, "Ooh, we should watch these guys."
But that's the same thing with Liberty. I mean, you look at their schedule; they have nothing that moves the needle and is exciting. Maybe I get a little excited when they play App State. I mean, I will obviously because that I'm looking at it from a Sun Belt standpoint. But taking a step back and looking at college football as a whole, there's not a game on there that I'm just like, man, I've got to sit there and watch this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one loss Liberty would have been out last year. If they lost any,
you'd have had SMU would have been in there.
It just happened to be they were the only undefeated team really in the mix. And I think, looking at Texas State, they're similar to me this year. Like, I think they've almost got to go undefeated or there just be like total chaos.
Yeah. And I think that the fact though, that they kick off Sun Belt Conference play, Texas State does, going to Troy and then having Arkansas State. Troy, we might not necessarily know what they're going to look like overall, but we know what Arkansas State is, and that's a sleeper team, especially with Jalen Raynor coming back at quarterback.
Yeah, they're going to be and say what you want about Butch Jones, but he's been building that thing. I mean, he's.
Yeah, they just are going for Arkansas State. They just got to show more consistency. I think that's something that we saw last year with them. And the games they scored a ton of points, they were winning those ball games. Might have gone undefeated, I'm pretty sure. But the games that their offense wasn't clicking and they weren't scoring a lot of points, they were losing those games because just the defense was not there. So just the entire team as a whole was just extremely inconsistent week to week. So for a team like Arkansas State to make some noise, they got to be more consistent week after week, or they're going to end up, 6 or 7 wins. I know the expectations for them are high this year. They feel like they can be in the mix and can win 8-9 games and play for a Sun Belt Conference championship, but they got to be more consistent from week to week.
So y'all cover the G5 as a whole, including Conference USA with Jacksonville State. They're one of the few teams that actually get 2 Sun Belt opponents there, opening up against Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss. Was Jackson State kind of a flash in the pan last year, going to their first ever bowl game, getting that bowl win over Louisiana Lafayette, or can we expect for the Sun Belt to maybe struggle a little bit against the Gamecocks?
Well, so I think two parts to that. So, they have Rich Rod as their coach. So when they came into Conference USA last year for their first year, we kind of thought maybe they could make a little bit of a splash. We actually had a conversation about this at the beginning of last year between Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State, those 2 new teams in the conference. Which of those teams do we think can make a splash? And I think we all said Jacksonville State because of Rich Rod and his ability to recruit and get top talent there. And you saw that on the field. You saw me and Murph saw it live. They came to Murfreesboro and played against MTSU, and MTSU got up on them early in the first half. It was maybe like 24-3, 24-10, and then Jacksonville State made some adjustments, and they came back and beat MTSU that game. So like we saw it live. That team has a good on offense. They have a really good running game, but they have a good mixture of the run and pass. And they're sound on defense. I mean, they are they can compete very well on defense. And I think what helps them, especially with Coastal Carolina, is is that week 1, I'm pretty sure. That game?
Coastal Carolina Jackson is the season opener.
Yeah, so you're getting Coastal Carolina with a new roster or with a lot of new players on there. They lost a lot of talent last year. So if you're Jacksonville State, you want to see a team like Coastal Carolina in that first week where maybe there could be some mistakes, there could be some turnovers, there could be some inconsistency with Coastal Carolina versus playing them at the end of the year where they could get everything rolling and get everything together. So I really do think, both of those Sun Belt teams could have a challenge in playing Jacksonville State. They're a well coached team. They have a lot of talent, really good running game. I have them picked second behind Liberty in Conference USA this year. I think they make a little bit of a jump. They made the splash last year, but I think they're going to be just as good, if not better, this year.
Yeah, among those CUSA teams that were kind of the FCS call-ups over the last couple of years, they always seem the most prepared to make the move up of any of them to me. So I'm not surprised that they've been pretty solid in Conference USA so far.
What about James Madison? We have a turnover top to bottom, left to right there, coaching staff, quarterbacks, running backs, kickers, water boys, and everyone in between. Is it a system that James Madison can continue to succeed, or do you think that this is maybe a rebuild year for Bob Chesney?
I think it might be kind of in the middle. This is a program that got a lot of recognition and got a lot of media coverage last year, and with all the success they had. So even though you're bringing in new coaches, new players, they're bringing in some top talent, and it's kind of similar to the Coastal Carolina situation. You might see James Madison struggle early on at the beginning of the year, but this team out of any of the teams could make everything work and make everything click and go on a winning streak during the year. It's always tough with these type of situations, right? You just don't ever really truly know until you see the product on the field. But I think, James Madison, I think, has the opportunity to at least, make it to a bowl game, 6, 7, maybe 8 wins. And I know that will be a disappointment for that fan base with the recent success they've had, but they got to have realistic expectations as well. I mean, when you're bringing in a new coaching staff, new players, I mean, it takes some time to get everything to gel. So I don't think this team loses any less than 6 games. I think they're going to play for a bowl game, but to win 8, 9 plus games like they have in recent years, I don't see that happening.
So my under bet you're saying is safe.
Well, what's the number at?
8.
I like that. Yeah, I would take the under on that.
I did.
Yeah, I think you got to keep in mind too, last year, when they get off to a 10-0 start, they had some things really break their way. Like, they were obviously a really good team, but, if there's not a lightning delay against Virginia, I'm not sure they win that game. And then they took a lot of momentum from there. There were some other things like throughout the year where they just kind of got some breaks to go their way, which you have to be undefeated that late in the season. But, I look at them, see them practice a little bit. They might be bigger, they might be faster than last year, but like you said, there's just so much turnover, like really everywhere. Like, I don't think
Jordan McLeod is elite. I mean, he's an elite quarterback. To lose a playmaker like that, it's hard to see them being as successful as they have recently.
Yeah, and I mean, they bring in Dylan Morris, who I think was a really good pickup as far as the transfer portal. But it's a new guy thrown to receivers he's never thrown to before. That receiving core is completely new. You just look across the board, so many new faces. I think they might be just as talented, but like, there's a reason. Talk about if it was luck last year. It's also a situation where you kind of make your own luck, and having the continuity and the detail-oriented coaching staff and everything doesn't hurt when you're consistently getting breaks. Like, maybe there's something to that too.
And on defense, I mean, they lost 8 of their top 10 tacklers from last year. They only have 2 returning starters on defense. I mean, if they're bringing, they've brought in some firepower through the transfer portal on offense, but you got to be able to, play sound defense in order, especially in the Sun Belt, to be able to compete at a high level week to week, especially when you get into conference play towards the end of the year.
So, group of 5 guys with us. You're on the outside looking in from the Sun Belt. Give us your perspective. How do you see this league kind of shaping out 1 through 14?
Whew. I mean, I think I'm going to do this thing in tiers. I think your favorites are App State, Texas State, probably Louisiana. And then I think just under that is a lot of people that I'm going to call contenders. That's where, to me, you've got almost everybody else.
James Madison,
Arkansas Coastal,
State.
Arkansas State. You may be able to put Marshall in that category. Troy, I think, is still. I think Troy is an unknown to me. I think I don't know if I missed it when I was off, but I think they still got a lot of pieces and they've got some culture. And I know, talking to people around Troy, when John Summerall got there, year 3 was supposed to be the year. Now, I know a lot of those guys are not a part of that equation and what this year would be of year 3, but there's still some guys now. And, Coach Parker's more of an offensive guy, so they really did all that with mostly on the back of the defense for 2 years. But so we'll see how they'll be. I think they're in that tier.
You think the 3 teams that are just kind of the lost souls once again this year, Georgia State, which it's hard saying that knowing that they were a 7-win team, including a bowl win last year. But I feel like this year they're so uncertain that we really don't know what to expect, that I almost say that Georgia State, ULM, and Southern Miss are kind of the lost souls. They're either going to do decent, 5, 6, maybe 7 wins, or it's going to be, man, is it December? And so we can rinse and repeat for next year.
Well, especially with Sean Elliott leaving, Georgia State in like the middle of February or something. And then,
weird.
Yeah. Super weird timing, but
it was like the day they started spring ball.
That's right.
Yeah, wasn't it? And then they had to postpone it. Yeah.
So you're just getting off to a late start, right? You're behind the 8 ball just right off the bat I think for Georgia State, I think it's a rebuilding year. And you hope that they get the transfers and recruits in to be able to compete in 2025 or the 2026 season.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Georgia State. I mean, you look, how many years in a row now have they been in a 1-possession game with an Auburn, a North Carolina? A few years ago, they've beaten Tennessee, but then they'll come back a week later and lose to a middle of the road Sun Belt team, and they've always had some guys. Now you look at them, pregame and whatever, they got some dudes on that roster. Now Del McGee, I think that's a big time hire. I know the Georgia Southern people were kind of mad that Georgia State made that hire. I don't know where, speaking of Georgia Southern, I don't really know where to put them. We went down there. We saw them in spring. I mean, they got some guys too. I think that tight end, it's Brock Bowers' little brother. Isn't that who, or not Brock? Who did I say?
You said Brock Bowers. It's I can't remember his last name. He was a quarterback at.
Good Lord,
Georgia, right? It's Tyler Fromm.
Jake,
yes.
Yeah, Jake Fromm's little brother. Yeah, Brock Bowers. That'd be something. But he's a stud though. Either way, I say all that to say he's a matchup problem. And
he's
then
a red
Jalen
zone
White,
target for sure. I mean,
he's
a red zone target. That's something they were missing last year in that offense, and they got it with Tyler Fromm.
So, but I think they're I think they're in there with a Georgia State and a Southern Miss. It's like it could be good, should be good, but we just don't know. And they've got a tough one to open up. So they got Boise State coming to Statesboro. That I'll tell you what, that's a very interesting game because Boise State's going to be a favorite, but they've got Oregon the following week, and it's going to be hot in Statesboro. And that's
rocking.
And that place, yeah, it's going to be electric. So that's not, but they know, Boise State knows that. But boy, that'd be a way for Coach Helton to get back, on the, get on. I don't think he's on any kind of hot seat, but it'll cool any seat off real quick.
Well, I was going to ask if this is a year where he needs to be a few games above 500. Does he need an 8-9 win season? Because they just kind of hovered around that 500 level. And, they were better the first year under Helton than I think people expected them to be. But then there wasn't a ton of progress the second year. So I'm with you guys. I don't think he's on any kind of hot seat, but I do wonder if there's going to start to be a little bit of rumbles if it's another 6 or 7 win season.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're exactly right. I think they overachieved. I think they got really, really lucky with Kyle Van Treese transferring down there.
And Bryn.
And Bryn. But, Bryn just he never like elevated them the way that, I thought preseason, Bryn was better than Van Treese from what Bryn did at Tulsa versus what Van Treese was at Buffalo. But, this is the first time they should have a guy that's been developed, that's been there a little bit. It's not a one and done kind of guy, not a rental. But they had about 3 guys in a QB battle in spring.
Is it still weird not seeing them run the triple option there?
Yeah. It's pretty funny. You talk to people down in Statesboro, man, they're a very traditional bunch. So I think that first year they're overachieving and everybody in Statesboro is like, oh, thank God we're not running that anymore. We're spreading it out. But then they thought they were going to be a 9-10 win team the next year and they weren't. And then they're going back to like, why are we running this crap? Why are we coming out of the gun? Why are we throwing the ball? But I think they got a shot. Again, the problem is the conference is so good. They're playing catch up.
Shane, it still crushes me. You notice how I talked to him about ULM and he just dipped, dived, dodged, and ducked. Talking about my Warhawks, which I get, Matt. I get it full effect. I mean, I think we're up to 74 new players coming in for the Warhawks. And everyone, of course, asked me, what are they going to be like? No idea. Because as far as I'm concerned, they're walking around with, hello, my name is name tags all over the place. Yes, we know General Axel Booty is more than likely going to be the quarterback for the Warhawks this season. But it's still not a guarantee per new head coach, Bryant Vincent. So I get it, man. I try to dodge it talking about them as well. I don't know. I mean, I left them speechless. I love it.
I don't know. It's hard. And I hate to say this because I shouldn't be this way, but I don't know a whole lot about. I don't know a whole lot about them other than I just don't think they're there. And that's got to be the toughest. Is that the toughest job in the country, you think? It's
maybe the military academies, because yes, you can kind of recruit, but you still just it's kind of high schoolish, right? You get what you get and you gotta make it fit.
Yeah, but that being said, the academy's got all the resources you could ever think of.
That's true.
And it's like, you also now, I almost think now the academies are the only ones they're not dealing with NIL. They're not dealing with the portal. They're not, they're just playing college football at this point. I think, Monroe, I think New Mexico's got to be pretty rough.
New Mexico, New Mexico State, UTEP, kind of that whole cluster right now.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you, I think FIU is brutal. Just but I think they are the positive about FIU is the recruiting. You could go to a couple high schools down there and just get the guys that don't go to the SEC or ACC, and you could still have some guys. But as far as, some of these places are just impossible to get fans and energy around the program. That's kind of how I feel about, Monroe, Louisiana is not Miami, Florida by any stretch, but
yeah, it is. We have a bayou.
Do you?
Those big water skiing areas.
Just to get the excitement around in the community and get something going. It's like, sometimes it seems like it's so far away. And then the minute you have some success with this portal, some of the guys are gone.
Aiden Huntington left ULM to go to Tulane. I mean,
anyway,
it happens over and over and over and over again.
I just danced all around you asking me what I think about ULM. By the way,
I noticed. and you know what? I'm great with it. We talked earlier about the James Madison's over under. I hammered our betting sponsor, Bet Online, had it at a 1.5. I hammered that. I went out into the desert out west. It was 2.5. I hammered that one as well. So, am I saying they're going 12-0? Far from it. But I could see this being a 4 or 5 win team.
Yeah. Well, hell, they should have beat App State last year.
Man, even Sean Clark had to laugh at me at media days over that. So, thank you, Matt, for bringing up PTSD once again. I'm now leaving to go back to counseling.
When I talked about the what ifs when it came to JMU about the rain delay and stuff, that's the big one in the Sun Belt last year, is like how App State wound up winning that game and just turning Sean Clark's entire career around by slipping out of that one.
Yeah.
And that was the starting of the hammers and the nails for the end of Bowden, because you look at the following week after that, they got destroyed by South Alabama because they were still just in shock of, we just played the most, complete game we have, and we were still a play short. And so I really think that was the turning point downwards for ULM last year. It just so happened it was early in the year.
That's football, man. That's why we love it and hate it.
So, on that note, the group of 5 guys, we thank you again. We look forward to having y'all on. We got to do it sometime before a whole nother year flips by, and maybe talk some bowl games, maybe a little midseason recap. Love having y'all on. Please tell us where can everyone find y'all, see y'all, and see y'all coming to a city near you.
At Group of 5 Guys on all the social platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook. And then you can catch our show. We haven't really officially announced yet, but we're going to have a lot more stuff coming your way once the season picks up. So our podcast, Group of 5 Guys, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all that stuff. My social handles are Sprouse_68. Tip, yours is Tyler_J_Tipton.
That's right. Yep.
I got it, dude. I got it down. You'll make sure
to
follow.
Have a number in there.
Do you not have a number in there?
Me? No, I don't. No.
Tyler _.
Because when Tyler_J_Tipton.
Don't you hate it when Twitter does this sometimes? Like every once in a while, you'll go to tag somebody and you just can't find their thing. That happens sometimes with yours, but so now I've memorized. So like I'll type in Tyler, nothing. I'll type in Tipton, nothing, and then I'll type in. Didn't it used to be like TJ? Didn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I think I did used to have a number in there, and I changed it like within the last couple of years.
Anyway, well, man, we love doing it. I like. Yeah, you gotta catch a game now. City near you. We're not ready to announce that, but it will be probably someplace warm. It may or may not be a Sunbelt facility. So
the Miami of Louisiana. We'll meet you
there. Yeah, we'll get there in Miami, Louisiana for Warhawks, and But no, man, we appreciate it. Yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it like a mid-season recap or something like that.
We'll make it happen.